A lake is supposed to be calm, a mirror, a boundary, a place you stand beside to feel safe. But some lakes don't behave like lakes. Some lakes explode without fire. Some lakes release invisible gas that kills so quietly people don't even wake up. Some lakes hold poisons, pathogens, or chemistry so extreme it turns the shoreline into a hazard zone. And the scariest part is that these lakes are real. No cursed artifacts, no supernatural stories, just physics. And the fact that water is an excellent container for things you absolutely do not want released. Tonight, these are the most dangerous lakes on Earth. And what makes them terrifying is that many of them look completely ordinary. The lake that killed while everyone slept. If danger had a perfect disguise, it would look like Lake Nyos, a crater lake in northwestern Cameroon. Quiet water, green hills, villages nearby. Then, on August 21st, 1986, Lake Nyos released a massive cloud of carbon dioxide. The gas rolled down into low-lying areas because CO2 is heavier than air, displacing oxygen where people were sleeping. The result was one of the most frightening kinds of disasters imaginable. One you can't see coming and can't fight once it starts. The Lake Nyos disaster killed 1,746 people and 3,500 livestock, according to widely cited summaries. A USGS report described at least 1,700 people killed and investigated causes and mitigation. Just stop and picture that. No wave, no flames, no storm, a normal night, and then the air itself becomes unbreathable. This phenomenon is often called a limnic eruption, a sudden release of dissolved gas from deep water. Lake Nyos is a volcanic lake, and research after the disaster concluded that CO2 had accumulated in deep water until something triggered a rapid release. The horror here isn't only the death toll, it's the mechanism, because it means water can hide a killer in plain sight, dissolved, stable, silent, until the lake decides to exhale. Lake Nyos was deadly because it released CO2, but there's another lake with gas stored inside it that worries scientists for a different reason, because it holds not just carbon dioxide, but enormous methane reserves. The lake with a bomb under its surface. On the border of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo sits Lake Kivu, one of the world's Great Lakes, and one of the strangest. Deep beneath its surface, the lake contains large quantities of dissolved gases, especially methane and carbon dioxide, in deep, stratified waters. Lake Kivu is well known for this enormous gas reservoir, and the methane is high enough to support commercial extraction and power production. Now, a careful detail matters here. A 2020 peer-reviewed study concluded it could not verify earlier claims of increasing methane since the 1970s and stated that methane and CO2 concentrations were close to a steady state, arguing there's no increasing risk from that specific trend. So this is not a guaranteed doomsday lake, but it is a lake where the idea of sudden gas release is taken seriously enough to drive ongoing monitoring, research, and industrial planning. Why is it dangerous? Because in lakes with deep gas loads, the nightmare scenario is a large disturbance. Geological, volcanic, or physical, triggering an abrupt release of gas from depth, similar in concept to what happened at Nyos. And Lake Kivu sits in a geologically active region, the East African Rift, where volcanism and earthquakes exist in the broader environment. This is what makes Lake Kivu unsettling. It's not a lake that kills you because you got too close. It's a lake that could threaten millions if a rare chain of events ever lined up. A threat defined not by monsters, but by chemistry, pressure, and a single catastrophic switch-flip moment. Gas lakes kill invisibly. But there are lakes that don't need to erupt. They simply poison everything they touch. And one of them became infamous as one of the most radioactive places on Earth. The lake that is basically nuclear waste. Now we leave natural disasters and enter something more disturbing. A lake made dangerous by humans. Lake Karachay in Russia became heavily contaminated after being used as a disposal site for radioactive waste from the Mayak nuclear facility. In 1990, the radiation level in the region near where radioactive effluent was discharged was reported as 600 roentgens per hour, which is enough to deliver a lethal dose to a person in less than an hour. That number is hard to process, so here's what it implies in real terms. At the wrong spot, at the wrong time, your body can receive a fatal exposure before you even feel sick. This is a different kind of lake danger than Nyos or Kivu. It doesn't care about triggers or rare events. It's not waiting to erupt. It's hazardous because it has been turned into a storage place for an invisible poison that does not negotiate. Even worse, this isn't just about someone standing at the shore. Radioactive contamination can become airborne, move with sediments, and become a long-term environmental hazard if disturbed. Lake Karachay is a reminder that most dangerous lakes aren't always naturally dangerous. Sometimes they are the price tag of industrial decisions. If Lake Karachay is the nightmare of radiation, the next danger is something older, something biological. Because some lakes don't need radiation to kill, they just need you to touch the wrong water. 4. The lake that can kill with microbes. A quick truth about disease in lakes. Not every deadly lake has a single famous disaster attached to it. Sometimes the danger is persistent and ordinary. Waterborne pathogens, toxic algae blooms, parasites, and contamination that turns a swim into a medical emergency. And what makes biological danger so frightening is that it's not dramatic on camera. It doesn't roar like a storm. It's just a choice. One drink, one cut, one swim, and then your body becomes the battlefield. Now that we've covered invisible gas, stored methane, and radiation, there's one more kind of danger that deserves its own spotlight. Lakes that can erase entire communities, because a lake isn't only water, it can be the top of a volcano. The lakes that sit on volcanic triggers. Lake Nyos wasn't just a lake with gas, it was a volcanic crater lake, and that matters. Volcanic lakes can do two terrifying things at once. They can accumulate dissolved gases, like CO2, at depth, and they can sit in geologically active landscapes where landslides, earthquakes, or other disturbances can trigger mixing. The reason humans fear volcanoes is obvious: lava, ash, destruction. But volcanic lakes are more psychologically disturbing because they look peaceful. A volcano advertises danger, a lake advertises calm. And when those two are the same place, your instincts can fail you. This is why the Lake Nyos story is taught again and again. It changed how scientists and hazard planners think about volcanic lakes and the possibility of limnic eruptions. But the final danger isn't about nature or accidents, it's about scale. What happens when a lake is so dangerous that even standing near it can be lethal? We already saw one, now let's tie it all together. Why these lakes feel like real-life curses. Let's put them side by side. Lake Nyos is terrifying because it killed with a gas cloud. Quietly, efficiently, in the dark, killing 1,746 people in a single event. Lake Kivu is terrifying because it holds huge dissolved gas reserves and sits in a region where monitoring and careful management matter, because the cost of failure would be massive. Lake Karachay is terrifying because it demonstrates that humans can create a lake so radioactive that exposure can become fatal on a short timescale. 3 lakes, 3 totally different mechanisms, and yet the emotional response is the same, because each one violates the rule we carry in our heads. Water is safe. These lakes prove water can be a container for invisible suffocation, a pressure chamber for explosive gases, or a reservoir of contamination that outlives generations. And when a danger is invisible, your instincts can't protect you. Most lakes are not like this. Most lakes are beautiful, ordinary, and safe, with basic caution. But these lakes are reminders that nature, and sometimes human industry, can turn a calm surface into a lethal trap. Lake Nyos showed the world that a lake can kill like a gas weapon, and it only takes one night. Lake Kivu shows how enormous a hidden gas reservoir can be, and why scientists measure, debate, and monitor the risk carefully. Lake Karachay shows that the most dangerous lakes on Earth aren't always accidents of geology. They can be made. So here's the question. Which is more frightening? The lake that erupts once? The lake that could erupt? Or the lake that stays poisonous for decades?